I'm Cyberpunk Holiday, aka Stefan JD, and here with me today is Jesse Chavez as always.
Hello, hello.
So today I put something on my face called Retin-A. It's supposed to get rid of your wrinkles. And then while I was in the kitchen making food, I was making Beyond Burgers because they're healthier for you than meat. And I was making a tea as well from a bark called Palo Azul, and it's supposed to clean out your kidneys. All these things to preserve my life, which, if you ask me, was the basis for Resident Evil, where scientists were searching for immortality in a plant that was called the Plant of Life. All that stuff really has nothing to do with the show we're going to cover today. The Netflix Resident Evil show, which is controversial for many reasons. Obviously, ethnic changes in casting, just being on Netflix at all, because apparently Netflix just destroys everything that we love. And then once it's done with it, it cancels it for season 2, even if you do like parts of it. So yes, we're going to talk about Netflix's Resident Evil. I think we both have mixed opinions on it. Some positive, some not. The point of the honest review is to be objective, or try to stay objective as much as we can. But what do you think of it, Chavo?
It was a competent story for the most part. There wasn't, outside of like certain bad decisions, there's nothing where I felt like the show was being unfairly consistent and really just like throwing me off intentionally or anything like that.
You mean like a Paul W.S. Anderson movie?
Yeah, I didn't feel like I was being punished for remembering the previous episode of something. And it's like, okay, all right, I'm here for this. Let's see where it has to go. And there are moments where it genuinely feels like a Resident Evil experience once you get over, certain characters being very different from how you know them. But I will also add that they're very sparing, with the exception of Albert Wesker. They're very sparing on what characters they name drop. Like, we have a descendant of Marcus in the show who's the new head of Umbrella. And then there's Albert. And then outside of a certain, I don't know if I want to spoil it this early in the episode, but there is another name that's dropped at the very end. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I think we're just gonna go ahead and start. You can spoil anything, and we should put that. There's a warning. We are gonna spoil the shit out of this. Not that I don't think anyone cares, but just in case.
So starting now, Ada Wong. She's possibly a season 2 contender if they're lucky enough to get that far.
Right, and that's the biggest strength of this show that I'm going to tell people is that objectively, the reason it stays away from, or the way it stays away from our main cast of characters, the one we love and are fond of so much, that's the strongest thing it does, is it doesn't fuck with our lore. It almost kind of does its own thing.
I'd say it's not canon, but it's canon adjacent. They touch on stuff that does happen in the games. They reference Resident Evil 5. They reference Resident Evil 3. There's
Resident Evil 1.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff that. There's another character I forgot. Lisa Trevor. She counts as she's a enemy, but she is a character too.
Right. I think when I was watching it, that was the biggest expectation. Like, if they bring in our legacy characters, how are they going to fare in this weird Netflix show, which doesn't even, like you said, adjacent. So it's New Raccoon City is the place that it takes place at, and it's Albert Wesker with 2 daughters, and you're thinking, what the hell is this? Lance Reddick is the best part of this show, whether you like it or not. He does play Albert Wesker. Obviously, it's revealed later that he's a clone, along with a bunch of other clones that Wesker created to help him do his nefarious bullshit.
Yes, he definitely has fun, because he's not the only clone we meet in the show. There's also Al, and then there's Bert. And then, of course, for the briefest moment, we actually see the OG Albert Wesker dressed up in his full RE5 attire, which just kind of makes him look like Shaft. And I feel bad for making that joke, but the big black leather trench coat, you can't get out of that.
Well, I was thinking Blade more than anything.
Sorry, Blade was I don't know why I mixed those two up. Blade was where I was going with that.
Yeah, and like the problem is that he doesn't have blonde hair. He just has a black afro, so I could see that. Even though I think Shaft is bald. But the thing is that while it's weird seeing Lance Reddick in that Matrix outfit, which essentially is what the fuck it is. And I've never been a fan of that outfit, to be honest, on Wesker.
The series has the franchise for the video games has always had a weird fascination with the Matrix because they've made so many references to it, like throughout the history. The biggest one probably being Code Veronica, like the original Wesker fight. Like you can't tell me a lot of his fight style isn't like that. They just took that from the Matrix.
Yeah, or Claire when she blows up those gas canisters or whatever the hell it is. Yeah. The slow motion. But, that's culturally sensitive to what was going on at the time, so I think we can all forgive it. The fact that it's still going on today when you see Reddick in the suit as Wesker, that's where it starts to unravel a little bit, and it's just too much for me. Like, I get it, but I don't want to see Wesker in that outfit anymore. And I'm so glad he's dead as well.
Well, you got to take it with a grain of salt, just because I feel like the more closer they get to actually showing direct like scenes that are supposed to have been from the games, the more danger they're in. It's a very cozy place that they're nestled, where again they're adjacent to the canon. They're doing their own thing. They're like off. It's an island we can see from our island,
Right.
But the closer they get, the more they risk contradicting something and pissing off the fans, who are very, very, very temperamental.
At least it wasn't Rockford Island or Sheena Island.
It's funny you bring that up, because honestly, a lot of the plot for the show can function as an adaptation of like the backstory for Resident Evil Gun Survivor, because it's the same deal. It's an isolated community. A lot of these kids have grown up. Their lives are umbrella. They don't know what's going on underneath. And then all of a sudden they're starting to get catch wind of oh shit, there's something below the idealistic city surface here that's really ugly.
Right, and that's one of the things that I think I first latched onto is just what the fuck for the spontaneity in the writing. The girls that are there with Wesker, they go to school, and or it's not really Wesker, but it's West. We're just gonna call him Wesker in this case. But they go to school in New Raccoon City, and immediately one of them is just beat the shit out of by a bully. Nothing instigating it, nothing setting it up. This character doesn't even really look like a bully. She looks like the same size or smaller, whatever. It's just as soon as that happened, I'm like, what is going on? Why is this happening? And usually you don't question those things in movies with bullies. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's some setup. The bully's huge. He's bigger. He's formidable. They have a terrible life. There's something set up. They're ghetto, whatever. Something usually culturally inappropriate, but in the case of this, nothing. It just randomly happens.
I'd say the closest we get maybe it's just because she's just bored, because it's a very sterile community. But even then, the way the show presents it, it's like, oh, I'm a vegan. Oh, fuck you, you dirty vegan bitch. Eat my burrito.
I mean, the point of this is to set up the power dynamics of Wesker and what's her name? The evil chick. Evelyn
Marcus, yeah.
And Wesker's using his power in the school to say, look, I could have all of you fired and probably killed if we don't just make this go away and it ends now. And it's a great setup for his character. but it's just weird how it happens.
Yeah, that is still though one of my favorite scenes because it's just like he's been kind of like the girls disrespect him constantly, so you think he's almost kind of a wimp. And again, we're like, as like if that's Albert Wesker, it's like what the fuck? Albert Wesker we know wouldn't take that shit. And then he sits down for this meeting, and he's just he looks over at the bully's dad, and he's just like, how many people can do your job? And he's like, I don't know, thousands probably. And he's like, yeah, how many people do you think can do my job? And he can't answer. And he's like, just me. I am literally the only person. And not only does he threaten like his place in the company and New Raccoon and low-key his life, but then he goes a step further and he's just like, yeah, I think you owe my daughter an apology, actually, and fucking just emasculates the dad, makes the dad make his daughter apologize to his daughter. It's beautiful.
It's pretty good. But speaking of the daughters, they're probably the most annoying part of the show. That's not to say that the adult versions can't get a little annoying as well with the over-the-top drama. Something we are used to in RE, but there's a flavor, I think, to the way the video games do it as opposed to this show.
Well, because the video games pepper that stuff out throughout gameplay, and there's like they feed it out in tidbits, whereas the show, because there's the conventions of writing for television, they constantly. We just have whole scenes, and I wouldn't mind, except it gets repetitive and annoying after a while, because here's how it usually goes, where it's just like, oh man, you're upset, you're feeling sad, here, let me do something for you. Oh man, well that's great, but I still feel bad because dad obviously likes you more than me. And then it just keeps going in that cycle, continuously getting more aggressive as one of them is like infected with the T virus, and she's just getting like this ramping aggression. And the frustrating thing about it for me was like the family drama, like almost kind of interferes for how I feel like the plot would naturally progress, where it's like, oh no, Billy, you got infected with you got bitten by a rabid dog. Our dad who works at the lab that dog came from might actually have a chance to help us. Are we going to talk to him? No, fuck you, dad, because we're mad at you. Reasons.
Yeah, because we went into your lab or your office where we weren't supposed to, and we saw that you taken our blood and you're using it to keep you alive for some reason you won't tell us. That would be easily explainable.
Like, no, them being pissed about that, justifiable, but it's just the amount of tension that ramps up beforehand that's already present even when the show starts. It's like, I get it. You're teenagers. You're designed to be moody and hate your parents, but honestly, if you are in a life or death situation where, again, you know that you were severely sick and it's connected to something your parent is connected to, you're gonna fucking tell the parent and be like, help us, please.
Right. I mean, I don't think any kid ever gets sick and is able to hide it from their parent for like 3 weeks or however the fuck long it is. No, I think it is justifiable that they're mad that he takes their blood and uses it to keep himself alive. I just think it's weird how they go about never discussing it. I think it's like the last 2 or 3 episodes, like they finally get around to talking about it. It doesn't really need to remain a mystery, is my point.
It's a cheap way to manufacture drama, you know? Because
it
it's
really
like,
is.
There's so many movies and shows out there where it's like, if the character would actually just jump into explaining something instead of being like, wait, I can explain. You know, it's like, no, just say it, because then they'll hear it and maybe you'll have a chance of getting them to listen. But instead they're like, no, we're going to purposefully delay this information so we can draw this shit out across however the fuck many episodes there are. And there's going to be little to no resolution for it. Sorry, I went on a rant there.
Well, that's the thing about the show is that when it works, and it's very rare, but I mean, when there's something going on that you're like, okay, I'm kind of interested in this, then it just continues on for too long. And I think that's the problem with all these shows is that when you're creating something new with a new property and you just want it to be dramatic for 10 episodes, that's going to be tough. Whereas if they had just done what we all wanted and they gave us like the setup of Raccoon City getting attacked and, you know, the rats in the sewers with Birkin and the mansion. Like, if they had just done that, and like the Arklay show, even where detectives are finding like people eaten, you know, in residential neighborhoods that are populated by small people, like outside of Raccoon a little bit or something. I mean, it would have been so much better than, hey, we're just going to create Clone Wesker, and he's going to have these two annoying kids in this place we're going to call New Raccoon City. That's not what anyone wanted. I mean, am I wrong in saying that?
No, no. It's a very weird, bold choice that they made with how they structured this whole thing. I guess we should kind of get into it. So, like, the show is split between two timelines. We have the present day, like for us, present day, 2022, New Raccoon City, right like 3 weeks before the world ends is the subtitle I think they use. And then we have the post-apocalyptic, like people are surviving, they're like living in like colonies and stuff, but like most of the planet is like zombie wasteland. Yeah, we have two concurrent storylines going back and forth, and they try to have a little mystery. Side note, again, if you're at this point, you're probably not going to care about spoilers, but if you still want to have any element of surprise, don't watch the show with closed captions, because they will literally spoil that one of the sisters who you think is dead is alive.
Mhm.
Because it keeps referring to her character as young Billy, and it's like, okay, well, if there's a young Billy, then obviously that means there's going to be an adult one.
Right.
It was very interesting to see them try to tackle the post-apocalyptic vision, especially after the Paul W.S. Anderson movies also tackled that. I feel like they do a better job with it, even though they have a severely limited budget.
And that does show, like, when they get attacked by the Cerberus dog, it's like, oh, just one? Just some random Cerberus dog? Okay.
Resident Evil is not a property you can do on the cheap. I mean, you can, but it'll suffer. With Welcome to Raccoon City, they did the best they could, but there is a lot of CGI blood that just doesn't work in that one.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have so many creatures and zombies with heavy makeup and prosthetics and other shit like that, like, you have to. I feel like that's part of where the whole drama balance kind of comes into play with this show, where it's like, well, it's easier to have scenes where these girls are just bitching at each other or bitching their dad out, as opposed to having a scene where, you know, New Raccoon City is falling to a zombie siege, where you have to have destroyed streets and fire everywhere and a ton of zombie extras walking around.
Right. It was something more akin to The Walking Dead then, in that case.
Yeah, kind of like how after they fired Frank Darabont, like, we spent so much time on that fucking farm in the show because it was cheap to film at an abandoned farm and like have stray zombie extras here and there, as opposed to like staying in Atlanta.
Yeah, and they don't even really stay on that farm that long in the comics either. But getting back to RE here, I agree with you. I agree that the scope feels small. The one positive to that is they kind of did nail the aesthetics of like the underground labs. They do look like they would be Umbrella Labs.
Yes.
Although that also means it's kind of nothing we've never, like, stuff we've seen a lot before, you know. Paola Nunez, who played the villain here in the show as Evelyn, fucking goddamn gorgeous, but I've seen her character before in so many RE games. She's basically a stand-in for Alexia, Excella. I mean, you could almost name any RE game, even not female-oriented, and there's been a villain like her.
Any ego-driven female villain in the series, or just any ego-driven villain in the series.
Yeah,
Period.
which, like, it seems to be the case. It's almost like anyone trying to stop like a villain in Star Wars that works for the Empire that's trying to like stop Vader and get one up on him or something. Like, that's how all the Umbrella staff and heads work. how do I fuck up this other person, like my boss's life, so I can take their spot? Like, it's about killing your managers. That's what
which
Umbrella's about.
which is very corporate, so it doesn't
Yeah.
stand out like out of place. But it is funny. I think on the other side of that, though, of like if you really look at the history of the franchise, Umbrella has a weird tendency of just hiring the most unstable fucking people to run this stuff.
Yeah, because they have to be evil, first off. Like, you have to have no conscience whatsoever to work for Umbrella. So, I mean, that's already working against the company in this case, right?
Yeah, no, they either end up falling on like Ilsa She-Wolf of the SS or God, I actually don't know how to top that one. I keep going back to the Ashfords because that's like the prime archetype of Resident Evil villains.
Yeah, well, they're like, I would say they're one of the better heads.
In the original game, absolutely. Not so much in the Dark Side Chronicles remake of
No,
that story.
no, that's a completely separate, non-canon. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I mean, like, negatively, it's hard to cover everything. Like, there's so many things that were wasted that could have been used in an actual RE show covering the games. Like, Gravedigger shows up, the giant worm from RE3. That was completely wasted. I feel like the fight was kind of okay. The Chainsaw Man from RE4 shows up, a bagged chainsaw dude who's working for this kind of coalition that's going against Umbrella in the apocalyptic world.
They're
And
religious zealots.
yeah, they're religious zealots, and the it's kind. I was kind of okay with all that, and it does a little like of the Indiana Jones thing where the guy just pulls out the gun and shoots him in the head and he's dead. And I got a chuckle out of that because it's like, well, yeah, of course that's what would happen. Like, why would he take 10 shots from my fucking shotgun, you know? So,
Just bam, right to the point.
yeah, bam, right to the point. He's dead. Let's move on. I enjoyed that. So, like, there's little caveats to why the show's worth watching. And it's the little moments like that. Like, I got really excited too. And I was kind of giving you hints about this because you were like an episode or two behind me about Lisa Trevor showing up in a video that the kids find that goes back to the mansion. I absolutely was so excited when that shit started happening. I'm like, oh my God, keep going. Keep showing me the mansion. Keep showing me things. And when he said, that's not me, and he was like referring to another Wesker because it hadn't revealed he was a clone yet, I was like, oh shit. So like right now they could totally pull like a white Wesker out of the hat and it would all fit perfectly into place. But no, they kept him black. Which
Which
was
I'm fine with because there's so many other things about this show that actually do conflict with the canon.
right. And it didn't really bother me at all, but it's just like, oh, there was a moment there where you could have surprised everyone and been like, no, yeah, Wesker's white, but his clone's black. And then like they could have had so many different clones of ethnicities, and it would have actually made sense even because he could have used their ethnic backgrounds to get into different places and used them for different reasons. You know what I
Well,
mean?
here's where I was going in the terms of like where it would fit in the series because they touch on this in Resident Evil Revelations 2.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Wesker's program that would have implanted her in that little girl, not Ronnie. I'm mixing up the Resident Evil kids. Oh God, what was her name?
That's what we call them,
Natalia.
the
Yeah.
Resident Evil kids.
There's just the whole, almost all of them babysitted by Claire. But
Of course, babysit it and pampered.
yeah, but Natalia, Alex was trying to put her mind in Natalia, but freaked out when she realized that it would be putting a copy of her mind and not her actual mind. And I kind of was thinking, oh shit, well, if Wesker died in Africa, what if Alex was able to figure out a program and stuff and like actually implanted his consciousness into someone that they captured in Africa? And that was why we have Lance Reddick Wesker. And it's like, actually, I know it's It's very much blonde, white Wesker. It's in a black man's body, which probably has other bad implications, but still.
Yeah, and see, that's too good of writing, Chavo, to put into a Netflix show.
I can't blame them because that would require them to actually play Revelations 2. So I'm not gonna
There is
call
that.
foul.
Yeah.
Who's gonna be like, guys, did you play Revelations 2? I got a perfect way we can justify this. And someone's like, get the fuck out of the writer's room. Your taste
Fired.
done.
It was like a message on the writer's room. Don't mention Rev 2. But yeah, it's that's the problem is like those ideas, it makes you want to give better ideas to the series, which again, I'm not going to take away from it because there are some good ones. It's just so mixed, like you said, the religious zealots, Umbrella, the apocalypse, going back and forth between two timelines, the annoying kids, Albert Wesker playing the role of somehow still working for Umbrella, but not really working for them, like he never does. It's just such a mixed bag of ideas that, again, its strongest suit was staying away from our legacy characters and the main lore and running parallel with it.
I think they're going to try to keep a distance from most of the legacy characters. I feel like we're going to get an allowance. We get one per season. So next season, it'll probably be Ada that we get to see, but it's not going to be like we're going to get Ada, Claire, Chris, Leon. Oh, God.
You think the last thing we'll hear is season 2, Ada, wait.
Just on a radio crackling. Ada! Ada!
I thought you liked it this way, Leon. No, Ada, not there. Ada, wait. Because we all know Leon's a fucking twink.
God, it's over for them if he shows up. It's because then everyone's gonna be like, oh, cool. So it's gonna be his show now, right? You can fucking hop on a Kawasaki and do motorcycle foo.
Yeah, pretty much. That's kind of like a generic. I hate to say it, kind of like a generic cover of the show because the show is in fact just generic. It doesn't really stand out to me too hard. There were a lot of parts of it that they just threw in shit from the games, like the alligator, the gravedigger.
It wasn't as obnoxiously out of place as like having the executioner from RE5 walking around in downtown apocalyptic Los Angeles.
Right. It's not Paul W.S. Anderson weirdness.
Ada Wong walking around with a butterfly dress in the middle of a goddamn apocalypse. Sorry.
Right. No, I agree. It's got its own flavor. Netflix made its own flavor of Resident Evil. And I gotta admit, I liked parts of it. They were very brief, very small. But at the end of the day, is this what I wanted? No. Is it what any fan wanted? Absolutely not. But, you know, there's different, and we've said this before, and Chavo was kind of the one who really pointed it home last time. There are different generations of Resident Evil fans at this point in the series. Everyone entered at a different time on a different game, and their character became their favorite character for whatever reason at that time. You know, that game was their RE entry point. So everyone has a different flavor. I mean, I've even seen people on posts say, why isn't Alice in this? Why isn't she in here? And it's like, who the fuck cares? But those are those RE fans, you know. Everyone has a different idea of Resident Evil is at this point. I think growing up with the series since 1990s, specifically 98, I obviously have been with it from the beginning. So I have a different idea of what it is. And I still have not been given the Resident Evil I want. But I will say, sadly, Welcome to Raccoon City is the closest adaptation we've ever gotten.
You know, and it's funny we bring that up again just because I think I swear to God, I think the Lisa Trevor costume they use in this show is probably taken from that set. Like,
I
I
think
think
it's
it's
the same
literally
one. Yeah.
just like, we don't really need to make another one. We can just we got this.
Yeah. What was it, Studio Canal or no?
Constantine film, although they now have
Constantine.
a television film called Constantine Television, and it's the same production company. So I would not doubt for a second, because all, like, when film productions happen, they will actually hold on to costumes for a set amount of time, uh, in case there's a sequel or something that's going to require them to pull them back out of storage. Like, they
Hmm.
don't just automatically throw shit away or sell it off. That was the problem David Lynch had with Mulholland Drive, like when he did the pilot, and then like he came back to do the movie, and then ABC was like, "Oh, fuck you. No, we sold off all the sets, all the costumes. Good luck."
Right. You're probably not wrong about that. And I hate to say it to people that, because I know how much everyone hates that movie. But Welcome to
I
Raccoon
don't.
City I don't either. I like a lot of it, but it's because of those moments it gives us. I actually have another honest review on the channel here about that. If anyone wants to go listen to that, that's basically us praising the parts that worked, like Claire and Leon in the station, and then the Stars team in the mansion. I mean, that's it, really. But
Yeah. But I will say this: the strongest thing I can say about this series is it's not a disaster,
mhm.
which is a dramatic improvement from what we had before. I'm hoping it's kind of starting a trend of maybe getting higher standards and better quality stuff for video game adaptations. And I'm not expecting Emmy winning television at all.
No.
I want to be entertained. And if it's not faithful, that's fine to an extent, but I want it to actually be, at least well structured, a well structured enough story where on its own I can still enjoy it, which
Right.
unfortunately I can't say for the Anderson movies, because they just punish you so hard for trying to hold on to any semblance of a story.
Right. They're nonsensical. They're like Michael Bay. They're worse than Michael Bay movies. They're complete nonsensical bullshit. But if anyone was curious about this, I would just look up those scenes on YouTube if you can. You don't necessarily need to watch the show or stills even. I don't think the show's going to get a season 2 because it wasn't immediately greenlit by Netflix, which is what they like to do in something successful.
They give it like a 3 week window where they
Hmm.
gather data, and it's usually, if it tanks hard, it gets canceled immediately after 3 weeks.
Right.
If they're on the fence, they maybe wait 2 months and then they'll issue a statement. And who knows? It's kind of wild, wild west in Hollywood right now, because you're getting movies just tanked left and right, shows canceled left and right, because they're like, it's cheaper just to kill this now and try to invest our money in something that recoups more money. And Netflix is kind of in the same boat as WB right now, where they want to fucking try to rebrand and go for the easiest material that will get the most profit. They're not really looking for prestige anymore.
And I will say that if they had just done what we all wanted, each season being a game, which, I mean, fuck, you got your 8 seasons right there already. Uh, we all, every Resident Evil fan would have rejoiced, and it would have been greenlit in those 2 weeks.
I just want my Outbreak television series, god
There
damn
you
it.
go.
I
Yeah.
just I because it would essentially be Fear the Walking Dead, but not like sucked and drawn out to the point like AMC does with anything in that property.
Well, see, that's the thing is like, and this is going back to what we were saying about so much drama being rinsed and repeated each episode. If you do it season by season, game by game, you can also sprinkle in characters from the town to fill up those drama holes. And all the Outbreak characters are there. I mean, just do it.
Just do it. But
Yeah.
to
But,
quote my favorite
it's
reporter.
Re- Resident Evil as of this review is in a weird spot because we just got off, like, we had the highs of 7, 8, the RE2 remake, and then the RE3 remake kind of brought it down a little bit because it was so much cut content, and Jill taking a back seat a lot in her own game to Carlos. And then you had the show, and then you had Welcome to Raccoon City, which super contentious with fans. So it's just a weird year right now for Resident Evil, but we have the RE4 remake coming in January, February, something like that.
Somewhere in that. So we'll see if that sets the fervor ablaze. But I look on it with weary eyes just because they were just starting to actually get back in touch with the horror roots, and with Village, and of course with RE4, I'm already starting to feel like Capcom's like, okay, people are starting to crave more action again. So let's start wheeling back in that direction and see how far we can go before they get absolutely fucking sick of it again.
Yeah, it's hard to tell with the trailers we're getting right at this moment because it looks more horror oriented, like in the fact that things are darker and there's less light. But
I will also say though, for a ray of hope, we also don't have the Anderson movies anymore, and I feel like they were actually a big part of what I know any excuse to keep shitting on it, but like I'm legit serious when I say I think that the games were trying to actually start to echo the tone of the movies and keep up with the movies, and not like more than just, you know, the direct references like the laser hallway and 4, and, you know, throwing a character in a red dress. Like I think they really wanted to start to capture the feeling because those movies were making mad bank.
right, and that's the thing that I think that, you know, a lot of popular things, popular like IPs forget is that for each form of media, it has to be its own thing because it can't be exactly the same thing as it has to be adapted. But as we've seen so far, nobody really has adapted RE in the way I think I would expect it to. I mean, even watching Game Informer read the George Romero script, that shit was way closer than anything we've ever been given. And it sucks that George Romero was right at that moment where the studio's like, oh, well, we're going to switch out studio execs. And then the new one came in and was like, yeah, we're going to get somebody else to do this. How about this Paul W.S. Anderson dude instead of George fucking Romero?
Yeah, we're gonna get someone younger who will probably work for cheaper. So
Yep. And that's, you know, that's just sad. And here we are with Netflix's Resident Evil. So, you know, I think we kind of covered the highs and lows. Another low might be like near the end when she's trying to figure out that she's got something that can kind of repel the zombies away. Instead of going out and testing it in the field like, you know, you do with anything, she brings the zombie on the ship. Chaos ensues. Not good. Also not smart. But
no.
that's what you could expect from this show.
Yeah, no, that's so. A couple things I want to delve into before we kind of wrap shit up.
Mm-hmm.
So the way you can pretty much break it down, the sisters with their constant fighting are annoying when they're teenagers, and then independently, one of them we only see for like 2 or 3 episodes. She's barely in the show. Like she has her dramatic reveal, and then she kind of comes back as like an enemy like later for like the last 2 or 3. But Jade in particular, like her older self has such a ridiculously high body count. And it's not even like she's directly like pushing people in the way of getting killed, but it seems like she just keeps kind of like setting that domino effect forward, and just like it seems like a lot of the deaths and the apocalypse side of the storyline you can attribute in one way or another to her. And I think they're trying to say that that's a Wesker trait. You know, it's like father, like daughter. You know, she doesn't care about the risk. She just wants results, which she spends so much of the series trying to avoid, because she's like, I'm nothing like him, you know, but she's obviously got like scientifical aptitude. So she's just like, she's kind of like trying to use her Weskerness for good, and it just keeps backfiring. And after a while, like the next bad decision she makes, you're like, seriously, bitch, are we really at this point? Have you learned nothing from the last 7 episodes? Okay, here we go again.
It's on
Oh
Netflix, Resident Evil.
my God, Stefan, I just had a revelation. You realize that there's young adults out there who are like 18, 20, who their retro experience with this series was RE4.
Oh my god.
Or no, RE5.
Yeah, RE5.
Oh, yeah, my older brother had RE5 and he let me play it and I was so scared. I'm not going to say the phrase because I hate when people our age say this phrase, but it does make one feel like they're up there in years, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I gotta tell you, as it sucks getting older, again going back to the immortality of the series, I really did genuinely love the fact that I grew up with RE from the beginning. Being 10 years old, 11 years old, and getting RE2 on my Nintendo 64 of all things, and playing it. I mean, like, goddamn, what an experience, you know?
I wish I could experience that magic again. You know, the first time I played RE2 on that battered, beat up PS1 disc that couldn't even play the FMVs, and still being thoroughly terrified and heavily invested in the story to the point where I had to track down a complete copy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, nothing will change those experiences. And, I know fans are frustrated with the movies and the shows and shit, but man, we'll always have the games. And we've got a lot of good fucking RE games. And even after this episode ends right now, I plan to play Outbreak and just chill today. And it's like, man, I'm so thankful for all the good RE games we did get. you know, Not many series last this long or have that many quality titles, you know?
You know, being a Silent Hill fan and seeing one of my favorite franchises kind of killed too soon, in my opinion. It really makes me appreciate Resident Evil both through the good times and the bad. And believe me, there have been some really shit years for the series.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yep. We have all suffered greatly in our fandom for RE.
Umbrella Corps, Operation Raccoon
Oh.
City.
Ooh.
Okay, Umbrella Corps was worse. Fuck you. But also,
No, yeah. Of
but
course.
RE6, that was a supremely dark time.
Oh, man. And I remember just like the devastation I felt in my heart for when I started playing that game and just realizing what it was and just like, oh my God, what did they do?
And that
Like,
was from the director of Outbreak too. So that
yeah,
was like a double sting. I was like, how can you make like such a phenomenal game and then churn out this?
it's
It's not
like,
all their fault. It's not all their fault though.
yeah, it's like they injected me with the T virus and the G virus. It was so bad.
Uh, but you know what? No matter how bad it is, Stefan, at least we're not having to watch. At least we don't have to watch Infinite Darkness.
Oh my
I will.
God.
I will always be thankful for that. You could not pay me to rewatch that shit show.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do an honest review on that at some point. Maybe I'll just do it by myself real quick, like a short one. But uh, before we go on and trash anything else or go deep down back into memory lane, I just want to thank everyone for listening. Obviously, this channel does many things. I have drawing videos, I have comic reviews, I have video game reviews. Whenever anyone wants to do an honest review, they're allowed to do anything. I mean, one of the honest reviews is about the Sega sound card, the Sega Genesis sound card. So, you can expect anything to show up on the show. Usually it's with Chavo, but sometimes I have guests. And, if you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing, all the things. And don't watch the Netflix Resident Evil unless you really feel the need to. I don't think it's worth your time, but you can do it if you please. I can't stop you.
I'd say give it a shot if you're bored and you need something to kill the time on breaks at work. Why the fuck not? Give it a shot. I don't see people wanting to rewatch it over and over like Stranger Things or something, but it's good for at least one viewing.
Right. Yep. So thanks everyone for watching. We'll be back with more stuff, and have a good day.
Righty ho.